You're all quiet and waiting. I officially call the meeting of the Committee on Public Safety, Finance, and Policy to order. We do have a quorum present today. Before we get to our agenda, I'd like to go through a few items. Everyone here today must be seated when they are in the hearing room. There's no standing or sitting in the walkways or aisles. If you need any accommodations, please let staff know. Signs aren't permitted in the hearing room or at the testifiers table, so please leave any signs outside. Clapping and disruptions are not allowed. Additionally, all of our testifiers who have signed up in advance have been provided with a time limit for testimony, so please adhere to those limits or you may be cut off just because we have a tight schedule and we have a lot of bills to get through. Similarly, members of the public who choose to testify will be provided with a time limit. Our first order of business is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes in the packets, members, and the first one is for February 29, 2024, the meeting minutes from the joint hearing. Representative Hewitt, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the joint meeting for February 29, 2024?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Representative Hewitt moves approval of the joint meeting minutes for February 29, 2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails and the minutes are approved. The next order of business is approval of the last meeting's minutes. These are the minutes from the second portion of the hearing, just the public safety portion, on February 29th. Representative Hewitt, may I have a motion to approve the minutes for February 29, 2024?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Representative Hewitt moves approval of the minutes for February 29, 2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails and the minutes for February 29, 2024 are approved. Our first bill on the agenda today is House File 3539. This is Representative Edelson's bill. Welcome to the committee again, Representative Edelson. And since you're not a member of the committee, I will move that House File 3539 be placed on the General Register. And I do believe, Representative Edelson, that you have the A1 author's amendment to put the bill in the shape you desire. Any comment on the A1?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good to see you all this morning. The A1 is actually a suggestion from Representative Niska in the Commerce Committee, so I think it was good. It's just clarification, making sure that the dusters are containing DFE are the ones that we are targeting.
All right, any discussion to the A1 amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails and the A1 amendment is adopted. All right, we will take up the other amendments after we hear from the bill's author and the testifiers. So Representative Edelson, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. House File 3539 takes steps to make compressed aerosol dusters like this one right here. I'm happy to pass it around the table so you guys can just see what I'm talking about. More difficult to obtain in retail stores throughout the state of Minnesota. What appears to be a harmless product has in recent years become the cause for many deaths, harm, and addiction in Minnesotans. This is due to a toxic nature of ingesting a chemical called DFE. It's a colorless liquefied gas. People ingest these products to get high by spraying them in their mouth or in their nose. DFE is what causes the intoxication or the death. This is not only an increasing problem in Minnesota, but across the United States. I can provide members after this committee the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's report on aerosol dusters that's being discussed right now. There is federal policy that is being looked at, but if we waited for the federal government to make changes on products that cause harm in our state, we could be waiting for a very long time. In the report, you will also, so when you do see that report, you will also see the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System, which is NEIS, provides a timeline between 2006 and 2020, and it reviewed the numbers that showed the harm that these products are actually causing. 70% of the incidents where victims were male. 1,126 resulted in a death, the youngest being 13 years old, the oldest being a 70-year-old man. 37 of the deaths were in Minnesota. The highest usage was between 18 to 54 years old, and approximately 25,300 ER visits are due to the injuries of people using these products. According to the data published in 2019 by SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration estimates that 2.9 million lifetime uses of computer cleaners or air dusters are happening. The bill before you seeks to start to regulate this product that is being abused due to the chemical, again, called DFE. In some retail locations in Minnesota, you will actually see these products already placed behind the counter or in a locked case. People are using these products in hardware stores and getting high. I have today with me the poison control director, and she will speak to what she's hearing. And I want you to just understand, poison control numbers are if somebody actually calls poison control. It is not an accurate reflection of what we're actually seeing in communities. But it also limits the retail to up to 3 cans per day. And then today before you is, if you do not follow this, there is a misdemeanor, which is why we are before public safety. Madam Chair and members, these products are causing harm. Since there was a story on Fox 9, I have received so many emails, garbage cans full of these empty bottles that you're seeing, people's lives destroyed. In public policy, we do a cost-benefit analysis, and the costs are too high. I'd like to go to my testifiers, please.
Thank you, Representative Edelson. And also, thank you for pointing out that it is here in this committee because of subdivision 6 members. That's line 3.6 to 3.10. It looks like your first testifier is ready. Are you Katie O'Meara?
Yes, I am.
All right, welcome to our committee. Please introduce yourself again for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Katie O'Meara, and thank you for having me, Madam Chair and members. My name is Katie O'Meara. I'm the mom of Tommy Byers, my only child. On November 1st, 2022, Tommy's life was stolen by difluoroethane, the poison in computer duster. Representative Edelson has been helping me through this, looking for how we can stop our loved ones from dying. My child did die. It could be your child, anyone's child. That's the next victim. This is my child. Obviously, he's not here today. This is my beautiful son, my only child, beloved by his dad and I and so many friends and family. The expectation today is that we find a way to protect our kids from dying from this poison. Tommy's dad and I had no idea what this huffing was. We'd never heard of it. We didn't see the signs. We didn't know there were signs. We didn't even know it existed. No one deserves to die like this. No parent deserves to lose a beloved child to a cheap hardware store can of poison. In a span of 3 weeks, Tommy's free will was gone. He was no longer making decisions for himself. The psychoactive properties of the poison had taken over. How can we stop this from becoming a giant epidemic and infiltrating our schools? For starters, let's shine a big bright light on this stuff. Let's be brave and talk about it. No more hiding. Let's educate parents, teachers, coaches, students, and expose it for the deadly poison that it is. My son was an accomplished professional man, charismatic and deeply committed to his large group of colleagues, dear friends and family, and simply cherished by me and his dad. I can't save Tommy now, but I can help save other people's children. We must pass this law. Tommy's word was Tommy's truth. When Tommy loved you, he loved you forever. I know my son is here with us now. He's watching and he's listening. I love you, Tommy B. Mommy.
Thanks for your testimony, and on behalf of our committee, our deepest sympathies and condolences to you and gratitude for you sharing Tommy's story and your family's tragic loss and trying to make a change. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Roxanne Cohen, and then on deck we have Sam Lee. So that means if you're on deck, come on down and get close so we can keep things moving. All right. Welcome to the committee. If you need a minute, that's all right. All right. And when you're ready, you can introduce yourself and begin.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee, for allowing me this time. Our daughter Vivian has struggled with an addiction to huffing DFE a toxic poison in compressed air the past few years. This has changed who she is. And like so many others, we were not aware of huffing, which made it harder to understand her changed behavior. Over the last couple of years, she had suffered seizures, been hospitalized, arrested, found in her vehicle huffing, and passed out. Following huffing, her vehicle had been found in the ditch. Loss of time from work, relationship struggles, and she shows no signs of slowing or getting treatment. The addiction has increased. She previously purchased 1 to 3 cans a time. Last month, she purchased 2 cases on consecutive days, and each day the case was empty when law enforcement found her. I made a visit to the family office supply store she purchased from. I explained the situation and asked that he not sell the product to her. The owner had no idea that people huffed this product. He said, "I want nothing to do with the death of anyone. Better yet, I will take it off the shelf." 2 days later, Viv returned at 8:15 a.m. and asked to purchase another case. His response, "Your mom and law enforcement were here, and we could be held responsible if something happened to you." DFE is unable to be detected in blood and urine tests. So when she had been arrested on a DUI charge, following a call into 911 made by myself after I found her huffing in her vehicle, they dismissed the case, stating there was no supporting evidence. When purchasing from big retail stores or online, self-checkouts, they're anonymous. It's convenient. There's no buying limits, no ID needed, no age requirements, no questions asked, and it's cheap. As parents desperately trying to prevent the unnecessary and untimely death of our child, we are asking you to pass this bill. For our family and our daughter Vivian, for Tommy's family in his memory, and everyone else out there facing the reality of an inevitable death of a loved one from DFE. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. And again, thank you as well for sharing your family's terrible situation to try to advocate for change. Next up, we have Sam Lee, and then we have on deck Lieutenant Colonel, I'm not sure what name. All right, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Samantha Lee. I'm the director of the Minnesota Poison Control System. I'm a pharmacist and a clinical toxicologist. For the past 5 years, our Poison Center has managed close to 100 cases related to air duster misuse exposures in Minnesota. However, I must stress that this number is an underestimation since calling the Poison Center is voluntary. Most of these cases involve individuals in their 20s and 30s, highlighting the vulnerability of a demographic often unaware of the lethal risks associated with inhalant misuse. A 2023 study by our Poison Center colleagues in Ohio reviewed national inhalant misuse reports to the Poison Centers from 2001 to 2021 and revealed that U.S. Poison Centers managed over 26,000 inhalant misuses over the 2 decades, with over half of these composing of freon and other propellants, including DFE-containing air dusters. 41% were associated with a serious medical outcome, and over a quarter were admitted to healthcare facilities. DFE-containing air dusters are widely available at low cost and usually not considered poison or dangerous by the public. Inhalant abuse creates an immediate high that can last for minutes to a couple of hours. The chemicals within the air dusters can take place of oxygen in the blood and brain, leading to effects such as drunkenness and disappearance, unsteady gait, or loss of consciousness. The biggest concern is that it can cause sudden sniffing death syndrome and produce irregular heart rhythms that can lead to cardiac arrest and death. The provisions outlined in this bill are essential safeguards against further harm through sale restrictions and prominent health warnings. I commend the efforts of the committee to prioritize public safety and address the urgent need for legislative action in combating inhalant misuse. Thank you for your time and attention to this critical matter.
Thank you for your testimony. And then the last person we have signed up to testify in advance is the Lieutenant Colonel from the State Patrol. Welcome to the committee, and please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Christina Bogoyevich, and I serve as Lieutenant Colonel for the Minnesota State Patrol. Working to keep products like this out of the hands of those who abuse it is good for public safety and will help with traffic safety. Several years ago, I responded to an injury crash down by Rochester. When I approached the driver, I saw several empty cans of dust-off in the vehicle. She not only injured herself during this crash, but while she was driving, she decided to huff, passed out, ran a stop sign, and T-boned an innocent vehicle in the intersection. Drivers ingesting an inhalant do present a danger on the roads, and we hope this bill can make a difference.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Do we have any members of the public who wish to testify on this bill? All right, I am not seeing any. So next, we are going to move on to the A2 amendment. Who will be offering the A2 amendment?
That'll be me, Chair.
All right, Lead Novotny, explain your A2 amendment, please.
The A2 amendment just adds a prohibition for possession of these products for persons under the age of 21. The penalty would be a misdemeanor, the same as possession of alcohol or marijuana products. If it's being used as an intoxicant, this gives us a chance to have some intervention being taken with children and young adults that are using this for an intoxicant, and hopefully getting them treatment and out of the circle of using this, and maybe save a life. I hope you accept my amendment and ask for a vote.
Representative Edelson to the A2 amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Novotny, I'm going to ask the members to vote no on this. Giving a child or a person under 21 a misdemeanor is not dealing with the actual issue. So I will just leave it at that.
All right, member discussion. Chair Becker-Finn.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I just want to point out there are legitimate uses for the product. For example, we use it in my coffee shop to clean grinders. And I know, folks who work on computers who may not all be over 21 years of age. It seems like a pretty steep penalty for using something in the course of your job or for a legitimate purpose. So just wanted to, we hadn't discussed that on the record, why the product exists in the first place. So there are some legitimate uses that are very helpful to various industries. Thank you.
Yep, and I'll just note too, the way that the A2 is worded, if there's somebody in a store like an office supply store that is under the age of 21, that is getting it out of the case, checking the ID, selling it, all of a sudden that person that's selling it is going to be guilty of possession, the way it's worded. So I don't think that was the intent, but at least that's how I read the amendment. Chair Pinto?
Just real quickly, Madam Chair, it occurs to me that although consumption of alcohol by somebody under 21 is illegal, I don't think that holding a bottle, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems a little, in any case, yeah, I'd be opposed as well. Thank you, Chair.
All right, looks like Mr. Johnson has a comment.
Madam Chair, members, I actually pulled this out in anticipation of this question. It's section 340A.503, subdivision 3, makes it unlawful for a person under the age of 21 to possess an alcoholic beverage. Penalty's not in that section. There's no specific penalty for it, but the default penalty would be under 348.703, which establishes a misdemeanor and requires a minimum fine of $100 for a person who is under 21 and violates that provision.
Chair Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As long as I walked into that, I'll follow up just to note that one distinction, as Chair Becker-Finn said, though, is that there is a legitimate purpose for the aerosol duster and not so much for the alcohol. But thank you, Chair.
Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just point us back to the testimony that we heard from the family that lost their son. They pointed out the fact that they called 911 to report driving under intoxication, and due to lack of evidence, they were not able to pursue that case. This would at least provide, if someone was found in possession and there's testimony from folks saying they're abusing this substance, some basis for us to intervene and potentially save lives. Perhaps the language needs to be tailored to be more specific to that end, but I think doing something like this is probably well advised. Thank you.
All right. No. All right. Lead Novotny, any closing comments on your amendment?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's been fleshed out. This is just a common sense thing that we need to have some way of getting these people help. and identifying people that have a problem. And I won't ask for a roll call, although I really wanted one, but we'll continue to try to work on this, I hope, with the author.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're not asking for a roll call, so we'll just move on to a voice vote then. All those in favor of the A2 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The A2 amendment is not adopted. All right, now we can move on to member discussion on to the bill. Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Edelson. I don't know if you'll be able to answer these questions, and they come from a legitimate inquiry into just understanding better. Do you know what the purpose of the DFE, thank you. Do you know what the purpose of that is? Like, why do they even include a substance that is toxic in nature?
Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hudson. That's a great question. Actually, there are many other products on the market that you can use instead of this. I don't know. I haven't been able to connect with the companies. I know that they wrote a letter, but they've never contacted me. So I would really like to hear why they include it, because they also know, I mean, you'll see the warning label in the back, right? The warning label is very small. My eyes are 42, right? It's really hard for me to see what the warnings are. So they have been made aware of what the issue is with DFE, and I don't know why they continue to use it.
Representative Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Edelson. That leads to my second comment. Without trying to interpret the language in the bill, I'm curious how your bill would change the current existing warning labels that are already on here.
And I'll let Representative Edelson answer. I was trying to focus on the penalties portion of the bill, since that's why it's before committee. But we do have time for that question. So go ahead, Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. So the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission did this large report, which I will again send to your CA after this so that you guys can see a copy of this. But one of the ways to intervene when we know products are being misused like this is to make the warning label larger. We've done it with tobacco. We've done it with alcohol. It's not the first. Sudafed is a good example, placing it behind the counter. So warning labels and placing it behind the counter are kind of common practice when we know a product is being misused. So they did look at some of the language which was adopted from that, and then also we brought some doctors from other states in to just give examples of what they've done. But some of the language is actually coming directly out of the U.S. Consumer Product Report, and so that's what we're mimicking.
Thank you.
Yes? All right, Representative Whitty.
Thank you, Chair Mueller. Thank you, Representative Edelson, for bringing this forward, and thank you for the testifiers. This is an important bill. But I will also say the amendment would have helped the parent in the court process to bring some resources. But I guess my other thing is, as many times as I've gone on a case like this, there's multiple bags, and there's really nothing that can be done at that point. And it's not just 18, but adults. And so I support everything you're trying to do here. I think even from the trooper standpoint, when she testified, it's adults, and then where do they go from there? You can't find it in the blood, you can't find it in urine. It's tough to, now you're kind of going off of your observations on them being under the influence. I hope there's another way that we can get about it, because I do think it affects not only our young children, but also our adults. But thank you for bringing this forward.
Great. Any further member discussion?
I have a question.
Oh, Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I don't know if this is for staff or who it's for, but isn't intent, like if someone's got a box of this in the back of their car and they obviously have been driving erratically, isn't there anything else the law comes into play on this? I mean, without having to increase the penalty, is there anything else that plays other than that? Or I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Can we have Mr. Johnson take a stab at that one? Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair, Representative Hewitt, I think you might be asking two sort of interrelated questions, one related to possession and one related to driving under the influence. There's nothing in law right now that would apply to driving under, to possession of this product that would prohibit it if you were a certain age. The driving under the influence provisions that you've heard about today, there was actually a Supreme Court case 2015, 2017, somewhere in those years, that found that this, I think it was DFE, dust-off was not a substance that could be used to charge DWI. The legislature did change the law to address that situation. Previously, there was a different list that effectively that was used that had to be referred to for DWIs. That has changed, and so dust-off would now qualify as something that could be used in a DWI. Again, if there was sufficient evidence to show that the person was actually under the influence of that particular item. There's not a test like the .08 level. Does that answer the question?
It does. Your knowledge around case law and history is really outstanding, so thank you. Any further member discussion? Closing comments, Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Thank you for the discussion today. This is a complicated issue. It's going to need a complicated solve. While I realize this bill is not perfect, Representative Novotny, I do appreciate your efforts, but I really don't think, I think that it's taking into account that everybody would be 21 or younger that has that, and that's not the case. And so, and also that misdemeanor is not treatment. And so I think that we, as a legislature, have made active decisions to not criminalize kids when they're actively in treatment or in addiction. People are being targeted by these products in a very unsafe way. There are alternatives to these products. I just want to make that very clear to the state and to the committee. There are alternatives. We do not have to have products with DFE. There are other products that do not contain that chemical, and I just ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I renew the motion to place House File 3539 as amended on the General Register. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Edelson. Members, we're going to change the agenda up a little bit just because of time constraints by testifiers. So the next bill we'll hear is Representative Mueller's bill, House File 4215. And we will be laying over the bill, so I will move to lay over House File 4215. Representative Mueller, I believe you have the A2 amendment. Any comments to the A2 amendment?
So we're just getting ourselves situated. Thank you, Chair Mueller. And yes, the A2 amendment, I would like to move the A2 amendment. When looking at the bill, we saw that some of the language was a little clunky, where it would allow, it was asking each agency to give a report, and instead we just want DPS to give one report of the agencies that receive this grant. And then it also specifies that DPS can only retain 2.5% of the grant amount for administering the grants.
All right, any discussion to the A2 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails and the A2 amendment is adopted. All right, please tell us about your bill as amended.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Mueller, and thank you, members of the committee. As you can see, I have a special guest with me today, and yes, Officer Sachs is amazing, but we are talking about Otis today, who is next to us, and so I'm really excited to have Otis, and yes, you are able to come and talk and touch him, so it's okay. You know, I have talked to several law enforcement agencies around the state. I've toured law enforcement training facilities. I have been on a ride-along, and every time I talk to law enforcement agencies and public and first responders, the statement is always the same. You call first responders on the worst day of your life. And according to an FBI Perspectives article in July 2023, police and other first responders are exposed to an average of 178 critical incidences throughout their career, while an average person encounters only 2 or 3 traumatic events in their life. This requires us to understand that the job of a police officer and a first responder is very different than the jobs that we experience in our daily lives as well. We have heard numerous stories in recent years about increased stress and PTSD in law enforcement and first respond because due to staffing shortages and an increased divisive political rhetoric. We know that first responders can be in stressful situations, and also that when they go to some of these situations, that children are placed in very traumatic and stressful situations. The Woodbury Police Department, Officer Sachs here, has found a creative way to help ease the stress of victims and children and of our officers who are responding to these events. And that way is through Otis, the therapy dog here that you see sitting next to Officer Sachs. The Star Tribune story in your packet talks about Detective Adam Sack and his partner Otis, the therapy dog, and how they have been first responders in the Woodbury community. House File 4215 provides an undesignated appropriation to the Department of Public Safety for grants to organizations that train therapy dogs for placement in law enforcement agencies. DPS determines which of these local law enforcement agencies receive the therapy dogs, with preferential treatment given to those agencies that have high related trauma incidents, PTSD, and exposure to high stress incidences. Reporting on the grant, on the use of grant is required. So I would like to turn it over to my testifier and have him explain the necessary of this bill.
All right, well, welcome to the committee, Detective Sack and Otis, who I don't know if people saw, but as soon as the house photographer came up to take a picture, Otis got up and hammed it up.
He's completely we're here.
So welcome to you both to the committee. Please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, representatives. My name is Adam Sack, and I'm a detective with the Woodbury Police Department. I am currently assigned to our community support team, which is a unit that specializes in situations involving mental illness, substance abuse, and homelessness. This team is made up of myself as a police officer, an embedded Washington County social worker who is a licensed mental health professional, and my partner, Otis here, who is our department's therapy dog. We respond out to crisis calls together and follow up after a crisis has occurred. Woodbury Public Safety got Otis as a puppy in December of 2021 as our department's first community support dog. As his handler, I attended several obedience training courses with Otis, and this last fall, we obtained our therapy dog certification through Pet Partners. As our first responders return to the building after a stressful emergency call for service, Otis is there to greet them upon their return with a tail wag looking for a belly rub. Otis is a friendly, smiling presence around our department who mingles with our public safety staff around the office and offers them comfort and support when they need it most. Otis has also become well known in our community through community engagement events and school visits. He provides comfort on crisis calls to dog lovers and provides a calming presence and non-judgmental companionship to those who are struggling. I've been able to bond with youth who experience struggles with behavioral issues by bringing them in to help train and work with Otis. In 2023, Otis helped with 43 different presentations and community events and assisted me with 68 different crisis calls and follow-up visits in the field. Overall, this has been a beneficial and effective program for our community. In Woodbury, we have the fortune of having the support of citizen volunteers with an established nonprofit called the Woodbury Police Canine Fund. The Canine Fund raised funds to purchase Otis along with ongoing expenses for the program. While we are incredibly grateful for their support, I recognize that this is unique and most communities do not have this established support. Since we have started this program and word has gotten out, we've had many inquiries from other law enforcement agencies who are interested in starting a similar therapy dog program to help support the wellness of their first responders and the communities they serve. This bill would help provide funding for the other communities to develop similar programs that would be of help to first responders and community members across the state.
And with that, I'd like to stand for any questions, Chair.
All right, great. Before we do that, do we have any other testifiers, any public testifiers? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to member discussion. Chair Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Chair Mueller, and thank you, Representative Mueller, for bringing this bill forward. We have a therapy dog in training in the city of Roseville. That's also, shout out to Ashes, still in training, still a puppy. But we've seen already how impactful even just having a dog in training available to both our fire department and our police department has been. I'd sent you an email, but didn't get a chance to connect. And so suggestion, I know we're laying this over, but would love if we could include all first responders. As we know, our police departments and fire departments often work together, and it may be the situation like it was in Roseville where the fire department we had someone on staff already, our assistant chief, who is willing to do that work and would hate for that to be a reason that a community that could benefit from this could at least apply. So I thank you for bringing the bill forward. It's a great idea, and I've seen firsthand the impact that these dogs can have for folks who are dealing with trauma. And finally, just want to thank all the individuals, foundations, and vet clinics who right now donate time and resources for these dogs to be healthy and continue doing their work. So thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Right, and did you, Representative Mueller, have a comment on the expansion perhaps to other first responders?
Thank you, Chair Mueller, and thank you, Representative Becker-Finn. That email got lost in the sea of emails that we get, and so I appreciate that. Since it is being laid over, I wouldn't mind being able to look at the bill language and see what we can do with it.
Thank you. Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Mueller, for this bill. As being familiar with this space, we're seeing this happen more and more. I know that Alina and 2 other ambulance agencies have now implemented the support animal for their people, which is really important in that space. And like Becker-Finn, I would like to see this expanded, definitely. I think it goes a long way, and it's so funny because this hasn't been a new concept. Most of you grew up knowing that firehouses have Dalmatians. And so it's been around a little while, but it's great that we're seeing it. And I have to commend Woodbury here. As we hear about the embedded social worker, this is a great use. And you saw it. I'm sure you see it when you're out there. And with our embedded social workers, with police officers, and to have a support animal, I'm sure we're seeing great success. It'd be great to have you come back and tell us more about that sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kern.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Representative Mueller, for this bill. I think I sent my request to sign on last night, so thank you for bringing this forward. As folks know, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, and the impact of something like this is more than twofold, but just to sort of highlight those 2 areas, we talk a lot about how we respond to different mental health calls. And I think any ideas that we bring to the table that can help with that are, maybe a little outside the box, or we're starting to see some communities use it. If that's working, let's use that more, right? So I really appreciate that aspect, along with the clear comfort and therapy that animals can bring to a law enforcement agency. I know when I was a dispatcher and a reserve sergeant in my earlier days, when we had animals that were lost and yet to be found, we would have them at the station, and if they were nice and gentle, we would let them run around, and we would give them some love and cuddles because we needed them to sometimes. So that was our way of kind of getting in the pets that we needed without having the funding and an actual dedicated dog. So very important stuff. Really appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I just have one question. Do you know how much it costs approximately to train one dog? Detective Sack.
So this can vary a lot. There's a lot of different ways to go about it, and there's several organizations that offer certification for therapy dogs. So for us, the cost was pretty minimal. It was a few $100s for the training, I would say, for the combination of obedience, therapy dog prep school, and the certification process. I'd say the majority of the expenses is going to lie with the initial purchase of the dog, and then the equipment that you would need, depending on which first responder you have the dog with, accommodations for kennel, or if there's special vehicle accommodations and all that.
All right, great, thank you. And I'll just note to what my colleagues have said too, I work in Hennepin County when we're not in session, and we have a courthouse dog now in Hennepin County, and I know that victims and witnesses and staff all find it to be a valuable resource, so thank you so much. Any closing comments, Representative Mueller?
Thank you, Chair Mueller, and thank you, all of you, for your support on this. What I'm hearing is that we need a therapy dog here at the legislature. That's what we're hearing.
No objection.
I just want to point out there are several letters in your packet that have been supporting of this bill, MPPOA, including in Hennepin County, Mary Moriarty. I did receive something also from a national, this morning, I think we got a letter of support from a national organization. So this is something that we are recognizing that it's going to be a benefit to our first responders. I did want to acknowledge Representative Becker-Finn and Representative Curran. Thank you for your support on that. I intentionally left the appropriation blank because I know you probably haven't received your target yet, but whenever that happens, I'm really hoping that we can prioritize our first responders with something that's going to really help our mental health of our first responders. So I'm sure that before they leave, Otis would be more than willing to get a couple scratches from legislators. And with that, I would like to renew my notion to lay over the bill.
All right, thank you. And just, I think I brought the motion, so
Oh,
just
sorry,
for the
never mind.
record,
You can do
I will
it.
renew my motion and lay over House File 4215 as amended. Thank you again. Thank you, Detective. Thank you, Otis. We appreciate it. I'm sorry for whoever has to go after Otis. We're going to get back on. That's Representative Tabke. Congratulations, you're up.
Sorry, Tabke, you can't compete with Otis.
All right, so our next bill is House File 4048. And Representative Tabke, would you like to move your bill that House File 4048 be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law?
Yes, Chair Mueller, that is my motion.
All right, and I believe you have an A2 amendment. Would you like to explain your A2 amendment, please?
Yes, Chair. The A2 amendment gets fixed a couple technical items that we needed to in order to make sure that this is the matter we want.
Any discussion to the A2 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. The A2 amendment is adopted. Representative Tabke, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you very much, Chair Mueller and members. So House File 4048 is a Department of Corrections policy bill, so it's got various policy items in here that we will discuss, and we have the commissioner here to do that. But before we get to that real quick, I want to say thank you to all the corrections officers who are here in the room today. So thanks everyone for being here today and for all of your work. It does not go unnoticed, and we just really, really appreciate it here in this committee and in Shakopee. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And I see Commissioner Schnell is already at the table. Thank you. Please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Mueller and members. My name is Paul Schnell. I happen to be Representative Tabke's Otis for today. In this hearing.
That does not work out well. No.
The Commissioner of Corrections. So thank you for hearing the department's policy omnibus bill. And I want to also express my gratitude to Representative Tabke for carrying the bill. The bill updates a number of statutes that govern the work of the Department of Corrections. There's a summary of the bill in your materials that lists the provisions in the order that they are in the bill, and I'll walk through each of them in order. Section 1 of the bill allows the DOC to notify crime victims of the zip code where an individual released from prison will reside. Currently, the department can only provide this information to victims of qualified domestic violence-related offenses, QDVROs. We are requesting this change to better keep victims informed of the general vicinity where the person who committed a crime against them is residing for awareness, and to allow for safety planning and advocacy services when needed or requested. Section 2 provides fuller clarity with regard to the DOC's authority to access and obtain relevant information from jails or other DOC licensed facilities in order to fulfill the department's responsibility to perform post-incident inspections following a complaint or a significant incident, death, in accordance with the law. In 2021, the legislature made this intent clear in the passage of the Hardell-Sherrill Act. That act was named after Hardell Sherrill, a man who died in jail due to a lack of responsive medical care. Some counties have been unsure whether they have the legal authority to release relevant investigatory information to the DOC and not violate other data practices provisions. This language provides clarity so that counties are clearly able to provide the information and the state can effectively complete and carry out its oversight role. Section 3 of the bill updates the membership of the DOC's Healthcare Peer Review Committee to include community providers, including community-based medical providers in the peer review process, which is a best practice for ensuring responsive medical care to incarcerated individuals. Section 4 of the bill provides a contingency designation if the DOC's medical director is unavailable to make decisions on behalf of an incarcerated individual. In 2019, the legislature amended the same section of the statute to designate the DOC's medical director the authority to make healthcare-related decisions for individuals who lack decision-making capacity or when there is no family member or guardian available. This language simply allows the department to designate a backup physician, perhaps through an interagency agreement with another state agency, to make those decisions in the rare circumstance that the DOC's medical director would be unavailable. In Section 5, the bill updates the statute that has been found to be unconstitutional. The correctional use of force statute contains the same language that was in the peace officer statute that was found to be unconstitutional in 2021 as it was written. The court made it clear that the provision requiring officers to articulate with specificity was unconstitutional, as officers cannot be compelled to testify. This was subsequently fixed in the peace officer use of force statute 609066. To have uniformity, consistency, and constitutional compliance, 4 words in Minnesota statute 243.52, subdivision 2, parents 1, parents I, by the, and I would say, quote, by the correctional officer, end quote, would be removed. Again, this change makes the use of force by peace officers and corrections officers consistent and constitutionally compliant. Section 6 is an amendment to the statute governing the Supervised Release Board, an entity created last year by the legislature to make parole and supervised release decisions. The work of the board, including meetings with those being considered for parole and those impacted by the crime victims, would be open to the public. The Supervised Release Board will be primarily involved in life sentence cases and those involving homicide or sexual assault cases. Under current language, beginning in July, victim input shared with the board would also be open to the public. We know that some victims and families will not want to share their experiences publicly, and we know that some of them have experienced longstanding mental health impacts and would prefer this information to remain private. This provision updates the statute, allowing a victim to request that their victim input to the board be closed to the public. The rest of the board meetings will be, by default, public. Section 7 modernizes the statute governing the DOC's Challenge Incarceration Program, or CIP. CIP is a longstanding intensive rehabilitation program, also known as the boot camp. In determining who may participate in CIP, current statute requires that the DOC create a list of disqualifying medical conditions, language that is contrary to constitutional rights of the individual. Today, in line with best practices and current person-centered approach, the DOC determines whether an individual can safely participate in the program using an individualized medical assessment. The bill removes antiquated language from the statute requiring that list of disqualifying conditions. Section 8 is an update to reporting requirement that was part of changes made to last year's statute governing community supervision and reporting. This section requires counties to report probation data and the DOC to then report that data to the legislature. This simply brings together, has a net effect of creating the changes that the DOC will, in its probation report to the legislature, will be 8 months earlier. In May, 1 month after we receive the data from the county. So it simplifies the reporting. Section 9 also relates to community supervision. The language is intended to better align the process of distributing state funding for probation and supervision statewide and creates uniform standards for all counties and delivery system. Currently, the statute only requires one supervision delivery system, Community Corrections Act counties, to engage or develop a local advisory board for review of a local supervision plan to the DOC. Counties that are provided through supervision through other delivery systems, the DOC or county probation officers, are not required to engage or have a local advisory board as is required of the Community Corrections Act counties. This language would create the requirement across all counties, and this is something that is generally been supported by all counties across all delivery systems. Section 9 is a clarifying change to help prosecutors obtain information they need, such as discipline, adjustment, and programming records, to assess the appropriateness under the recently enacted prosecutor-initiated resentencing bill passed last year. When prosecutors seek information from the DOC on individuals who may be petitioning for resentencing review, the data practices statute compliance is a concern and can delay the process of review. This language would streamline the data sharing process. And finally, and last but not least, we have an and/or problem to fix. Last year, the DOC proposed modernizing change to statute to allow the electronic filing of dispositions of detainer paperwork instead of the antiquated paper-only process. However, instead of providing the more efficient option, a drafting error now requires the department to do both. This language changes the and to an or. Chair members, I want to thank you for all you do. And as you can see, our agenda this year is considerably lighter than in years past, as our attention and focus is on implementation. And the implementation is on the stabilization and wellness of our workforce. And there's good news to report on that front at another time, improving the safety and post-incident learning, focused reviews, and increasing training of our staff. Staff-led and stakeholder-informed work groups focused on MRA. And last, chair members, I too want to specifically acknowledge with gratitude the presence of the men and women in the blue uniforms who on a 24/7, 365-day basis do the hard work of ensuring the safety and security of our state's correctional facilities. It is their work that helps those we serve succeed, which produces better public safety for Minnesota. And I am immensely grateful to them and honored to work with them. So thank you.
Thank
I
you.
would stand for any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner. Do we have any members of the public who wish to testify in this bill? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we can move on to member discussion. Any discussion? No? Oh, Lead Novotny.
All of our questions were answered.
All right, great. All right, any closing comments, Representative Tabke?
Thank you very much, Chair Mueller and members. I just appreciate Commissioner Snell being thorough on letting everyone know what is in the bill, and appreciate everyone's support. And with that, I renew my motion that House File 4048 as amended be referred to Judiciary Committee.
All right, the motion has been renewed that House File 4048 as amended be re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. And Representative Tabke, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next, your next bill. It's a little bit out of the order. And we don't have a lot to do on this bill because this is one we've taken up before. So members, we're going to move to House File 3599. We took testimony and debated this bill on February 20th. At that time, we laid the bill over. And today we're bringing it back up to vote and move on to the consent calendar. So Representative Novotny, would you offer a motion to place House File 3599 on the general register with a further recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar?
That is my motion, Chair.
All right, so Representative Tabke, do you have any final comments on that bill?
I do not.
All right, Representative Novotny renews the motion that House File 3599 be placed on the general register with a further recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails and the bill is further recommended for the consent calendar.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we are going to move to Chair Becker-Finn's bill. And that is House File 3490. Chair Becker-Finn, I believe your motion is that House File 3490 be placed on the general register.
That is my motion, Madam Chair.
All right, and you have an A2 amendment. Would you like to move the A2 amendment and explain it to us, please?
Yep, so moved. So after the first hearing on this bill in Commerce, there was a little bit confusion about exactly what we were referring to in this bill. So the amendment clarifies that this bill is focused on bones or calcified human remains. So we've added that language, and then it was pointed out that adding for commercial purposes is redundant because we're already talking about sale. So we just removed that redundant language. Then we did also incorporate some suggestions that came, believe it or not, from the Senate. And was language that was discussed there, just clarifying some things about where this would not apply, as well as making sure that instead of exceptions, what we're really talking about is donation and reimbursement for costs. So there would be no more, no exceptions in the language.
All right, and I see that you also have an A3 amendment to the A2 amendment, and I was thinking about this earlier and thought if anyone's playing a drinking game with the word amendment, today is your day. I'm going to say that word a lot. You could be drinking coffee, it's all right. All right, so would you explain to us would you like to move the A3 amendment to the A2 amendment and explain the A3 to us, please?
Yes, so at least it's not an oral amendment, Madam Chair. So the A3 just adds the words "or final disposition" on line 1.18 after the word transportation. And I added this after talking to Representative New Brindley on the floor, and she had suggested that, and so wanted to make sure that was incorporated in my amendments.
All right, so any discussion to the A3 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The A3 amendment is adopted. And then would you like to now move the A2 amendment as amended, Chair Becker-Finn?
Yes, that is my motion, Madam Chair.
All right, any discussion to that? All right, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The A2 amendment as amended is adopted. All right, we'll move to the other amendments after we hear the bill and testimony. So please go ahead and tell us about your bill as amended, Chair Becker-Finn.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So by now, maybe since we had an interesting hearing in Commerce earlier, hopefully you've heard that this bill is coming, but right now in the state of Minnesota, it is currently legal to sell human bones. You could walk into an oddities shop in Minneapolis or St. Paul right now, possibly other places, those are the two that I'm aware of, and purchase a human skull for several $100s. If you pull up your phone right now, you could look up other human bones for sale on the internet. There's also a handout in your packets from Skulls Unlimited, which online, these sales also happen quite a bit. So after looking into it further, we learned that the sale of human bones is not currently addressed anywhere in state statute. House File 3490 would change that and make it illegal. Again, this is focused on the sale of bones because we know that's a practice that is openly happening right now in the state of Minnesota. Finally, for the purposes of legislative intent, it may seem obvious, but I do think it's important to state why we should make this change. I would guess for most of us, it is simply against our own internal sense of right or wrong, the dignity we believe anyone should be treated with. For myself, there's also a long history of Native bodies and remains and bones being disturbed, dug up, displayed, and sold, some of them still held by institutions and individuals today. For many of us, the idea of commodifying an ancestor is just beyond what we want to support in public policy. I also will add, there's been some discussion, at least online, but I thought that these bones, people claiming that they've acquired these bones ethically. What they appear to mean when they say that they acquired them ethically is that, to their knowledge, they were not harvested for the purpose of sale. The reality is that sellers have a financial interest in making it seem okay to make these purchases. And the practice being legal right now may be what they're relying on when they say that they're doing it ethically. What they mean is, it's legal for me to do this, so I'm going to do it. So that is the bill. As I mentioned in the amendment, just cleared up some things to make it really clear that we're talking about calcified human remains, bones here, and then making it clear, because there was some discussion in Commerce as far as, well, there shouldn't be any exceptions to this. You're right. So we took out the exception language and clarified for the purposes of donation or reimbursement. For example, dogs who are trained to cadaver dogs, things like that, or a licensed healthcare provider, or medical schools that are using them for purposes that are legitimate. But again, nobody should be profiting off of that. So that was the reason we made that change, and happy to talk further about the bill.
Thank you. And I understand you have one testifier, Jessica Intermill. So please come on down to the table and introduce yourself and begin your testimony when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jessica Intermill. I'm an attorney and a land history consultant, and today I appear on behalf of Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. I am not Indigenous, but my tribal clients have entrusted me to carry stories that are horrifying no matter what your background. I invite everyone, but especially Indigenous listeners, to take the care they need as I share one of these stories. I've practiced federal Indian law for nearly 20 years, and I worked with a tribal client who was at the office one day when he received a call. His town had planned a routine water main replacement on Main Street. And when the backhoe broke ground, they moved the dug earth and bones fell out of the backhoe. Main Street and the water main were directly in front of a boarding school that had operated for 102 years. The crew had unearthed the remains of adults, children, babies. And as a courtesy, the construction crew called the tribal employee known as the Bone Guy around town. He was the tribal historic preservation officer, and he was an archivist. He generally worked in a library, not in any archaeology field. But the worker went to the site, and he saw what he described as an ossuary, a room where calcified bones are stacked and stacked and stacked. He called his department staff of 3 or 4 people and told them to bring any trowel, kitchen colander, or window screen that they could find and come to the site. The site manager had given him 24 hours to remove as many ancestors as he could, and then the city would resume construction. So the librarians worked around the clock to save as many of their interred family as they could, and the whole time, onlookers from the town lurked around the hole. They watched and gawked and tried to grab what remains they could for themselves. None of us could imagine walking into a cemetery, unearthing a human skeleton, taking it home, and selling it on eBay. The multi-faith, multiracial organization, Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, is committed to our collective moral responsibility to honoring the life of every person and the interconnection of all of us. The sale of human remains is immoral, and this bill would rightly make it illegal. Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light encourages the committee's support of House File 3490 because we are all related, and none of our relatives should be for sale. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anybody from the public who wishes to testify? All right, I am not seeing any, and so we will, before we move to member discussion, we will move to the DE1 amendment. Who will be offering the DE1?
That'll be me, Chair.
Lead Novotny to the DE1.
Thank you, Chair. And Representative Becker-Finn, thank you for bringing this forward and working with Representative New. It's very, it's work that is very important to honor our ancestors, as was said, and put in important safeguards for the future moving forward. Having read the statutes that are already in place, I think we're in a fairly good spot in the state of Minnesota for protecting, and I think this will really get it there. Our DE1 includes most of the changes that you made with your amendments already. The 2 changes that are left that change, underline 1.6, changes the meaning of human remains to include teeth. We included this under the concern for things like gold teeth being removed from the deceased. You know, and obviously this would not apply to teeth that are removed while the person is alive. And then the final provision that we add is life science company that are registered with the Food and Drug Administration or individuals employed under contract. That is language that came from the University of Minnesota at their request. Other than that, we agree that this bill is vital and important, and I hope that you accept the amendment. Thank you.
Chair Becker-Finn to the amendment.
Yeah, we'll note it's a DE amendment, so I would oppose the DE amendment. I do want to clarify too, it's not that the University of Minnesota requested the change, it's that someone who works at the university had spoken apparently with Representative New. I have not heard from them, nor do we have them here to testify, so I would oppose that change. It's not clear why they would need to, again, profit off of the sale of bones. I understand there may be legitimate uses related to post-secondary institutions, but that's already covered in the language. So if there's some company who's profiting, I don't know that somebody needs to make money selling bones to them. So I appreciate, like you noted, I incorporated some of the things that were recommended already in my language as it's already before us, but would oppose the DE, but appreciate the conversation, and again, have been in conversation with Representative New Brindley.
Other discussions to the DE?
I have.
Oh, Representative Hewitt.
Yeah, it's one of those industries I dabble in, Chair. Well, yeah, the author and I both talked about this already, and so the teeth, there's all over the country right now with this question is, so most people today are being cremated. And so after cremation, the teeth actually do make it through, regardless full or whatever. Is that, I mean, where would you go with those? And family members don't want them back, and they don't go through the process as well as the bones do. So that's one question. And then as far as what we're talking about here, so the bequest program at the University of Minnesota is a great program, and families use it all the time. Minnesota is looked at around the country as this. And it's not that so when someone donates their body, the body is considered now part of the educational institution teaching, and they do work with Medtronic, they do work with all these other institutions that have to do, and as a medical person, I've worked on cadavers too, and it really does get you that training, so there's no other way to really do this other than that. But my understanding, talking to the bequest program and people that have been involved with this, is that the fees that are charged around the processing, because the body does still have to be embalmed, the body still has to be prepared, it has to be put in a special transport container, and then they have to basically regulate that body until most of them get cremated. That's what happens with the bequest program. So I don't think anybody's profiting from the actual body. It's not even profiting because it's all done by nonprofits. But the teeth one, I guess it's a good question, Representative Novotny. I don't know how, I mean, I think we should look into this more because there is something left over after cremation. There is something left over after alcohol hydrolysis. And if you guys know, I'm working on the dirt bill too. So, I mean, I think these are great questions and what we could, where that should go. But I don't know if this is the space for it. I've never ever heard, in Minnesota at least, that's all I can speak for, of anybody being charged with taking teeth from a body or doing something like that before the body goes to its final dispensation. So, but I think it's a question we should bring up and kind of look at down the line. So I didn't mean to give you more information than you wanted to know on this. I was trying to stay quiet. So, thank you.
And I'll just say, I wish we had the therapy dog bill next. Like, we maybe need to do that one again after this conversation.
He already left,
Oh,
sorry.
shoot,
Oh,
okay.
God.
All right. So I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, or we'll just move to the, even Representative Hewitt, you're shaking your head no. We will move to final comments on the DE. Lee Novotny.
Thank you, Chair. Just for Representative Hewitt's question, both the bill as it stands as amended from Representative Becker-Finn and my DE both have the clarification that no one is to the profit from this, but there are costs that can be recovered. Chair, as I said before, I appreciate the work that Representative Becker-Finn has put in on this already and listening to stakeholders, and I would just, I will approach her after with this and continue to work on this bill.
All right, thank you. So are you, you're not withdrawing your DE? Would you still like to take a vote on the DE?
Let's take a vote on it.
All right. So Representative Novotny moves the DE1 amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The DE1 amendment is not adopted. All right, so now we will move to member discussion of the bill. I think Representative Hewitt, nobody wants to speak after that last. All right.
I need a break from public safety for a few months.
All right, I'm not seeing any members. So Chair Becker-Finn, closing comments, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to say, even though I think because this is kind of a gruesome topic, I think naturally folks laugh out of discomfort. So I just want to highlight that, like, that's totally normal, but this is also a very serious thing. As was highlighted by the testimony, we do have NAGPRA at the federal level, which impacts some tribal remains, but there's clearly holes in our current system that need to be addressed, and that's what this bill does. So really focused practically on the thing that we're trying to stop. And we'll also say for the record that we intentionally have it to be, have it worded so that it would be, it would take effect immediately, and that's because there is a expo that happens every year where the sale of human bones in the past has been something that has happened, that is happening in May in Minnesota. So that's why that language is the way that it is, so that we can make sure we disrupt that from happening this year. So appreciate the discussion, appreciate you hearing the bill, and would renew my motion to send the bill, House File 3490, as amended to the General Register.
Thank you. Chair Becker-Finn renews the motion that House File 3490 as amended be placed on the General Register. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. All right, next we have Representative Novotny's bill, House File 4414, and I think that is our last bill for the day. And Representative Novotny, I believe your motion is that House File 4414 be placed on the General Register with a further recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. Is that correct?
That is my motion, Chair.
All right, so please tell us about your bill.
I'll have to read it off because I can never remember. I've been on this board since its beginning. The Ensuring Police Excellence and Improving Community Relations Advisory Council is a council that was put together in response to the incidents of 2020. And that advisory council was to be an advisory council to the post board overall. And I have with me Director Misselt, who can speak to this further, but the intent of this bill is to clarify what the council is called. And it makes sense to me because every time I have to explain to someone what meeting I'm going to, I try to tell them what the meeting's called, and I simply say, it's the Post Advisory Council. And I will leave that to Director Misselt now.
All right, thank you. Welcome back to the committee. Director Misselt, please introduce yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Eric Misselt. I'm the Executive Director for the Minnesota Post Board. The only thing I'll add is that aside from the name just being cumbersome, to say the least, I think the new title captures better what we do. And for what it's worth, the original author of the creation of the group was Representative Mariani. And I know shortly after that it was passed, he was also amenable to shortening the name, for what that's worth.
All right, thank you. And sometimes when groups have long names, there's a good acronym you can use, and there's not even an acronym that can be used in its place here. So do we have any members of the public who wish to testify? I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to member discussion. Any discussion? All right, any closing comments, Lead Novotny?
I appreciate you hearing this bill, Chair.
All right, Representative Novotny renews the motion that House File 4414 be placed on the general register with a further recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails, and the bill is further recommended for the consent calendar. All right, members, that concludes today's agenda, and we will see you on Thursday. This meeting is adjourned.